This thing speaker. Okay.
Yeah. Hello, Namaskar, good evening. Center for Innovation in Science and Social Action, CISA, and Navdanya welcomes you for the inaugural function of the book launch and the webinar. And the program is organized in connection with the release of a landmark publication of CISA and Navdanya, The Two Futures of Food, Health, and Humanity, a civilisational dialogue. This book those who read this book will have a deeper introspection on two questions, and one, mechanical mind, patents and profits, or ecological mind, biodiversity and health. And a book written by two stalwarts in the field, Dr. Vandana Shiva and Dr. GG Gangadharan. And Dr. Vandana Shiva, whom I would like to call the Indian Rachel Carson, a person who triggered the philosophy of deep ecology and conservation in India, and a long-term friend of CISA, who is also the chairperson of Indian Biodiversity Congress. And the CISA's association with Dr. Shiva began with Annam, a people's movement for food security, food sovereignty, and good food. And Dr. Vandana is a trained physicist and ecological scientist. And she has been identified as one of the 100 powerful women and globally. And she says, every problem I have studied in ecology, food and agriculture, erosion of biodiversity, and climate change can be traced back to the mechanistic reductionistic paradigm, which facilitate extractivism for commerce and profits. And that is what she writes in her book. And her organization, Navdanya, has helped set up over 150 community seed banks across the country and helped set up the largest direct marketing fair trade organic network in the country. And she is one of the leaders and board members of the International Forum on Globalization, and also a member of the International Organization for Participatory Society. In 1993, she received the Right Livelihood Award, widely recognized as an alternative Nobel Prize. And the second author of the book, Dr. GG Gangadharan, is one of India's leading Ayurveda physician and scholar, and who has a PhD at the Tilak Ayurveda Mahavidyalaya, Pune. And he's also a fellow of the Ashoka Foundation, USA, for his work incorporating local health traditions and Ayurveda in primary health care. And also he did a 2-year master's program on health system management from McGill University, Montreal, Canada. And Dr. Gangadharan is one of the Ayurveda acharyas in the country who has held various prestigious positions. And he was temporary advisor to the regional director, Southeast Asia, WHO, convener scientific advisory committee for the International Institute of Ayurveda, Coimbatore. And recently, he is the vice president. He was also vice president to Ayurveda Pharmacy, Coimbatore. And his efforts towards prevention of biopiracy of Ayurveda practices culminated in his nomination as a member of the National Committee to Review Traditional Knowledge Digital Library. And he is currently the chairperson of the Scientific Committee Clinical Research for the COVID Task Force under the Ministry of Ayush, Government of India. And he is, Dr. Gangadharan is the president of CISA. And this today, the book, the foreword of the book is written by none other than Dr. Bhushan Padwarthan, Vice Chairman, University Grants Commission, New Delhi, and Professor and former Director, Interdisciplinary School of Health Sciences, Pune University, Pune. And Dr. Padwarthan is a biomedical scientist who is a fellow of National Academy of Sciences and National Academy of Medical Sciences, India. And then he's also, he worked as academic head of Manipal Education Group, Director Institute of Ayurveda and Integrative Medicine, Bangalore, Vice Chancellor, Deemed University in Pune, and visiting professor at Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla. And his presence here is much more important because he was a member of several task forces in India, including National Knowledge Commission, Planning Commission, and Niti Aayog. And also, this is his presence is very relevant today, primarily because the world speaks about One Health, and probably he'll also deal with that subject. And we are also here in the panel. Dr. C. Suresh Kumar, who is the secretary of CISA, and Shri Ajit Tavanur, who is the vice president of CISA. And now it's a pleasure and honor to welcome Dr. Bhushan Padwarthan for introducing the book. Welcome, Bhushanji.
Thank you, Professor Biju Kumar, and all your colleagues at CISA. Let me first tell you that when I saw the book, first time, the draft which was sent to me, when I started reading it, I realized that this is something very different than normally what you would read from a book like this. Although the title is little longish, two futures of food, health and humanity. And then they connect it with the mechanical mind, patents and profits, or ecological mind, biodiversity and health. And the authors have called it as a civilizational dialogue. So very, very loaded kind of a book that makes you think, and that presents a reality before you, what is happening around us. The 20th century is bringing newer threats due to global warming, loss of biodiversity on one side, while technological advances in artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and robotics are really having overlapping functions of man and machine with deepened extractivism. This is really becoming very, very serious. And this situation has only intensified the challenges to environment and humanity, largely influencing agriculture and healthcare sectors. I think that the anthropocentric and totalitarian, materialistic approaches are becoming more powerful. And very few individuals, actually, I must tell you that they dare to raise voices against such lobbies and resist the misuse of power that we see around us, And these voices are very, very precious to save nature, to save civilization, and to save humanity, and the entire very existence of life. And therefore, friends, I have no hesitation in saying that I am a great admirer of Dr. Vandana Shiva. Not only because she is a very well-known quantum physicist who emerged as a powerful thought leader and advocate of environment, agriculture, culture, natural foods, and social good, but she is an assuring voice to protect interests of vulnerable communities against exploitation of natural resources, protection of intellectual property, and preventing misuse of technology. I've interacted with her several times, and the passion which she comes in, the knowledge and the depth which she presents is simply unmatchable. I found, the level of commitment that Dr. Shiva brings towards protecting interests of poor farmers, gullible patients, and I'm happy that her sister, Dr. Meera, is also here with us, who also brings in similar kind of a passion towards people, especially the poor people and the downtrodden communities. I also am same time happy. I have a double joy because another person of whom I am fan of is Dr. GG Gangadharan. GG, we lovingly call him as GG, and he is actually 3G. GG Gangadharan is eminent Ayurveda scholar who pioneered Loka Swasthya Parampara Samvardhan Samiti. And he worked very, very closely to promote local health traditions and public health. He practices and promotes integrative medicine that brings in the best from modern and traditional systems in the best interest of people. And we are working now towards how we can move from the currently silos of pathies or pathy-based approach, wherein we are interested more in protecting our own turfs. From there, how can we shift to people-centric or person-centric or patient-centric holistic healthcare? This is what we are trying to discuss these days. And this book comes at a very, very right time. Both the authors bring very, very seemingly diverse but complementary expertise, endorsing social sensitivity and high level of commitment towards protecting interest of the civil society. This captivating scholarly book, although it is smaller in size, gives a big philosophical message. With the four chapters which you can see when you go through the book, they make readers think about the impending scenario. Authors have very lucidly discussed various aspects of holistic sciences of living systems on one hand, and mechanistic and reductionist approaches on the other. The philosophical underpinnings and the glimpses of ancient wisdom may inspire many readers to look beyond the living world as a composite of mere physical matter. Because Ayurveda concepts such as Loka and Purusha or Pinda and Brahmanda, or in commonly known language, we call them as microcosm and macrocosm. They're very, very profound concepts which bring deeper philosophical tone to demonstrate interconnections of these man and machine in the context of nature and food. Authors discuss the mechanistic and ecological approaches of health with few interesting yet scary examples. I must tell you, when I was reading, you get scared after reading these examples, such as lab-made breast milk, or the lab-made meat, or the nanoparticles in your blood. So scary to even think of such things. Authors rightly describe human beings as conscious, intelligent species in a conscious universe, and not as a data mining machines or its mere users. So this is very, very profound. People consume today drugs like food. And the aggressive use of pharmaceutical medicine has converted the whole society as a medicalized society. And we have started believing that by taking medicines, we will get health, which is very weird. Health, I think, is too precious to be outsourced to anyone. And I think that doctors are guardians of health, and not just merely prescribers of medicine. It's so sad that even today, the data shows that almost 40% of elderly are using more than 5 prescription drugs. The moment you start prescribing, the whole business goes into the hands of the companies. And Dr. Shiva has been really raising her voices against these companies, and not only companies. Today we are talking more about the pharmaceutical and nutraceutical companies in that context of this group. But let me tell you that this is not in isolation. And whether it is agricultural chemicals or pesticides and other agrochemicals, or whether they are pharmaceuticals or nutraceuticals or other kind of health products, I think that their origin is common. And I will just speak about that origin, because I feel that the origin, if you go back, and I have tried to see a little bit of history, which is really interesting, I could see that the origin of all these poisons, I would say, today many of them are being used as medicines and many of them are being used as agrochemicals. Their origin is basically in the various kinds of research that was going around the world wars in the last century, which witnessed several shades of human creation and destruction. Many historians refer this period as chemist war, because the scientific discoveries and engineering advances, the chemical weapons, the gases such as chlorine, phosgene, mustard, were used to attack against civilian and military population. Several synthetic chemicals were discovered during this period, primarily for military needs. And but as the proverb goes, necessity is the mother of inventions. It was necessary for industry to repurpose many of these toxic chemicals which were produced during the wartime. But when the wartime is over, you have to repurpose it for something else. The origin of many toxic drugs and poisonous agrochemicals which are used today, I can connect it with the post-war crisis. The nature has been giving us many signals during this. And I remember a very, very interesting report from European Environment Agency published in 2013 under the very, again, interesting title, Late Lessons from Early Warnings. I remembered this book very much when I read the book by Dr. Shiva and Dr. Gangadharan. The World Health Organization has been warning us regarding toxic hazards of pesticides since 1953. The thalidomide disaster that made thousands of children suffer with various kinds of malformations before its complete withdrawal in 1961. While pharmaceutical drugs and agricultural chemicals are useful, their overuse and abuse remains a matter of serious concern. During 20th century, because of growing awareness regarding chemical pollution coupled with advances in biotechnology, the industry interest from chemistry now is shifting towards biology. And that is emerging another monster by way of GMOs. I hope that this book will certainly attract sensitive, inquisitive, and avid readers, as well as it will be a very good read for students and scholars, especially from the field of environment, health, and human sciences, as well as liberal art. I don't want to spend more time because I am also very keen to listen to Dr. Vandana Shiva and Dr. Gangadharan, but I wish to compliment both of them, for this very thought-provoking contribution. And I congratulate CISA and the publishers, for bringing this very, very valuable contribution in the field of knowledge and academia, which will be very useful for intellectual readers. I wish you all the best. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bhushanji, for the forward as well as for the introductory lecture on the book. And now we'll listen to Dr. Vandana Shiva.
Vandana ji, you are mute. You are mute.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhushan Patwardhan, and thank you to the CISA team for their continued partnership with Navdanya. Dr. Bhushan Patwardhan has given a lot of detail about the book, particularly the issues of worldviews, the ecological and systems views, which are both common to our ancient systems of knowledge, be they Ayurveda or agroecology. Agroecology, organic farming, biodynamic farming, all have their roots in the Indian system of farming. And of course, the very deep understanding of what it means to be human, the understanding of self as a multi-layered interbeing, as you said, Dr. Bhushan Patwardhan, a conscious being in a conscious universe. This is India's gift to the world, that the universe is conscious and we are conscious. And the assault on this consciousness and this worldview has been going on since the Industrial Revolution, since colonialism, even before the pharmaceutical and chemicalization age. The British tried their best to criminalize Ayurveda and make it illegal, just as much as they tried to appropriate our knowledge systems. The vaccines, the variola vaccine, as Dharampalji has recorded, was recorded in India, then presented to the Royal Society, and then vaccines were made, and they made variolation illegal in India. A lot of my work in life has been around biopiracy. But this book was inspired by the fact that we are truly in a deep existential crisis. And the COVID crisis added to the lockdown really makes it a moment to reflect on what's the way forward. On the one hand, we have a future where we can recover food systems that don't cause disease. In the last 20 to 30 years, India has emerged as an epicenter of diabetes through junk food. And every concession a government could give to the junk food industry is given, beginning from subsidies and no charges for electricity and water. And I worked with the people in Plachimada who were trying to shut down the Coca-Cola plant, and they succeeded, probably the only place in the world where a small group of women shut down the big giant of ill health. But even the fact that all our food standards are actually set by the junk food industry. The standards themselves are written to favor ultra-processed industrial foods and punish local healthy foods. Since I deal with this through Navdanya, every day we get a signal of what next of India is being made to disappear. And our commitment is to not allow the health-creating food systems disappear. As you mentioned, Dr. Patwardhan, it's a century since Hitler's concentration camps and wars gave us IG Farben, gave us the poison cartel. And they retooled themselves into agrochemicals on the one hand and the pharmaceutical industry on the other hand. So Monsanto was bought by Bayer, but Bayer is also the big pharmaceutical industry. Glyphosate is the biggest selling chemical, Roundup, its trade name, of Monsanto. It is known as a carcinogen, established by the World Health Organization, IARC. Who gains when cancer spreads? Bayer with its patented cancer drugs. It's an amazing business model because it is literally a perpetual motion machine that keeps expanding as sickness and disease keeps expanding. And food is supposed to be for health, but food today is the single biggest reason for disease, whether directly through the toxics in the food or through the ultra processing or through the expansionist agriculture of spreading GMO soya in the Amazon, burning forests, and the invasion into the forests, creating the spillover of new infectious diseases. And when the infectious diseases that come from the forest join with the chronic diseases created by an industrial food system, you have a totally lethal situation, as we have witnessed with the corona epidemic, particularly those who died because of coexisting conditions. But we have another way. And India has practiced it for 5,000 years. Navdanya has practiced it for 36 years. Not an external input agriculture system based on toxic inputs, creating monocultures, and then reducing food to a toxic commodity, spreading disease all the way. We have ecological internal input systems. They are local circular economies of nutrition, of food, of biodiversity, of its relationships. This is my scientific work now for 36 years. And we are producing more food. We are conserving biodiversity. We are reversing climate change. And our systems are the future. But just at the time where there is need for ecological systems to regenerate, the mechanistic mind and the greed machine, I call it the money machine in my new book, Oneness versus the 1%, is rushing ahead to now bring us, as you mentioned, breast milk as a climate solution. Now, what could be closer to a baby than the mother's breast? And what could be a healthier food for a newborn than breast milk? The WHO has established it. But Bill Gates, through a climate funding agency and investment fund, is promoting lab-made breast milk, not as a health solution, but as a climate solution with no consideration about its health impact. Worse, the Silicon Valley is jumping into every bad idea because it is a good idea for making money. Something called Impossible Burger has 14 patents attached to it, most of them in the hands of the investors. This is GMO soya mimicking meat, and then lab-made heme blood poured on the burger to make it look and feel like meat. Why do we have to go so far away from the truth of healthy eating, the truth of a vegetarian diet? Pat Brown, who is the CEO, says we sought the safest and the most environmentally responsible option to allow us to scale our production and provide Impossible Burger to consumers. It's not an environmentally sustainable option because monocultures of GMO soya are spreading Roundup 1,500% more Roundup spraying, killing everything green, killing the monarch butterfly, and having toxic residues of a cancer-causing agent. No tests have been done on health on the Impossible Burger, but the next sentence of Pat Brown is even more disturbing. He says, when an ancient, unimprovable technology counters a better technology that is continuously improvable, it's just a matter of time before the game is over. He is calling good food an unimprovable technology. Technology is just not militaristic operations. Technology is the workings of nature to control pests. Technology is ecological pest control of farmers to control and regulate pests. Technology is knowing neem can be a pest control agent. Violent instruments of war are not instruments of technology in life sciences, they're instruments of war, as you reminded us so clearly, Dr. Patwardhan. And then you have in health, just in 20, 30 years, a small group of companies who invested in information technology and the tech giants because of no taxes, because of investing in tax havens, because of collecting royalties and rents from patented software, just like Monsanto got rich through patented seeds, something we fought in India and was successful. They are trying to reduce health even further down the external input invasive technology line. You reminded us about the chemicalization and pharmaceuticalization of health. What chemicals and pesticides are to agriculture's external inputs. Untested drugs are to the health system, and they are invasive. And we just have to look at the very, very short history of how drug after drug, and this is your field and you've contributed so much to this, drug after drug has been shown to have side effects and absolutely not working. You mentioned thalidomide. We have solutions in Ayurveda to iron deficiency anemia. We have diets and amazingly rich biodiversity that can provide good protein without an impossible herb burger and can provide iron without putting nanoparticles into our bodies. The nanoparticles have not been tested at all. In fact, the scientists who assessed it said the type of hazards that are introduced by using nanoparticles for drug delivery are beyond those posed by conventional hazards imposed by chemicals. However, so far, the scientific paradigm of making these tests doesn't exist. It's lacking, and we have little understanding of the basics of interaction of non-nanoparticles with living cells, organs, and organisms. There should be a moratorium on nanoparticles, and the UK Parliament, the House of Lords, had a debate, and they said very clearly that there should be a moratorium since there is no testing. This should not be allowed. But Google, you wouldn't think Google is entering your bloodstream with nanoparticles. 5 years ago, they created a new life sciences division, Silicon Valley is rushing to invade our bodies. The big tech is merging with big poison of the poison cartel, big pharma. And of course, digital technologies. Google Life Sciences CEO Andy Conrad says we have to defeat Mother Nature. This is what went wrong when the Cartesian Baconian paradigm started its war against the earth, declared nature as dead, inert matter, took away all the creative harmony in nature and between humans and nature. And this is at the root of disease. This is at the root of inequality. This is at the root of poverty. And they want now to conquer Mother Nature. If people around the world are waking up to the defense of the earth and her rights, whether it's for climate change or for the extinction crisis or on deepening inequality, everyone needs to organize around the big rubber barons of the tech industry to say you cannot declare a war against Mother Nature through untested hazardous technologies. And the final case that I have shared is a new patent on the human body. We've been reduced to users of algorithms. And let me read out this patent. Its application at the world level is 060606. It's already been granted to Microsoft in the United States. It is a patent for human body activity associated with a task provided to a user, and then the user will be assessed by algorithms about their worth, and their worth will be defined through bitcoins. Not bitcoins, but through cryptocurrencies. So we lose our humanity, we lose our economies, we lose our society. Let me read further from this patent. It is, we are being reduced to raw material, and the body activity, you know, so many of the young smart Indians are rushing to get the smart wear. They're rushing to get the new monitoring system. But those monitoring systems are the mining systems for data. This, and it's not just, I've just cited one patent. And the fact that we are citing patents shows that this is the intention of the industry. A patent is a commercial declaration of interest and a monopoly. But Google has similar patents, and all the IT industry has similar patents. They talk the body activity that Microsoft wants to mine without our permission, without our consent, which is absolutely fundamental to any human rights, is radiation emitted from the human body, brain activities, body fluid flow, organ activity or movement, body movement, and any other activities that can be sensed and represented by images, waves, signals, texts, numbers, degrees, or any other form of information of data. Example of body radiation emitted from human body may include radiant heat, brain waves, ECGs. Examples of body movement include eye movement. They're putting all this into your cameras. Eye movement, facial movement, or any other muscular movement. Here we are in a civilization that had created the maximum space for freedom in interaction with the rest of the universe, with a consciousness that we are not individual atoms in separation. We are autonomous, we are self-organized, we are complex, we are dynamic, but we are interacting all the time. And these systems of interaction have been put so beautifully in the sections written on Ayurveda by Dr. Gangadharan as a theme. I will leave it to them to explain the deeper worldview that has stood its ground from 5,000 to 10,000 years against a system that brings disasters which last 20 years, 30 years is what the Green Revolution lasted. The GMOs lasted 20 years. BT cotton has been proven to have failed as a technology to control pests. Roundup resistant crops have been recognized to fail to control weeds. All they've left None of their drugs have been, look at the Ayurvedic drugs. 5,000 years we've been using them and they haven't gone wrong. And they ask for evidence in a systems perspective. You don't have one competent causing an impact on another competent. You have a living system changing. It's called contextual causation. It's called systems causation. It's called four-dimensional space-time evolution and process. A primitive, crude, war-based science and technology cannot be the guide of the future. The guide to the future must come from both re-energizing our time-tested systems and recognizing that everything that has been said in India has been proven. It was said that the body, the brain is here and it's outside for the superior men, and the body is senseless. And now we are talking about the gut microbiome as the second brain. We were told the soil is dead matter. We are now realizing that not only is the earth our living mother, but the soil food web is the basis of health. The soil food web is the basis of solutions to climate change. The soil food web is the answer to extinction. In biodiversity and living systems lies the solutions to all the existential crises that 500 years of colonialism and 100 years of a toxic thinking and a toxic chemical warfare has given us. It is time to wake up, not just in one country, not just in one community. This little book is our gift to the world for a wake up to choose our future with responsibility, with freedom. Thank you.
Thank you, Vandana ji. That was really a wake-up call for the humanity. And I'm sure that those who read the book will understand the complex situations we are in. And as you said, the solutions are there. The solutions are there in India, and it's only our duty to, realize the facts which are there in our knowledge system, and really then definitely the wisdom will be ours. And thank you, Vandana ji, for the continuous support. And I'm sure that this book will kindle a lot of discussions. And of course, this will be a trigger for our Anna movement as well for future. We will have a series of similar books so that the people will be aware of the richness of our system, and definitely the way in which the whole tech corporations are gaining monopoly even on knowledge and knowledge systems. And I now cordially invite Dr. GG Gangadharan to share his views on this book.
Namaskar to all of you. It was really inspiring to listen to Dr. Vandana Shiva, and it was equally very eye-opening to listen to Dr. Bhushan, who has gone through line by line of our work. It pains me. Actually, it is like a presentation of a mother after delivery, natural delivery. That's kind of feeling one gets when we look back to the creation of this book in a very, very, very subtle form to start with. This has come out of the pain of observing ourselves, the state in which we are in, due to lack of our effort to bring up what is there in our culture, in our civilization, which has got more than, at least more than 10,000 years of unbroken history. So no civilization can just sustain without contributing to the contemporary needs of the society. So many other cultures which has gone into the dark and which has gone to the oblivion, India stands apart with living sciences like Ayurveda. Many of the other sciences have gone as not an active science, which is dormant in, and it's lying in very few selected pockets. But Ayurveda, fortunately, has been very vibrant and has been contributing to the emerging needs of the society. So one of the things that which made me to express what I expressed in 4 chapters of this book, which was immensely supported, helped by my colleague, my student, my wife, all those three women who have given me data, and very, very important data has been given more strength to what I have to say. What I have to say through these chapters is to complement what Dr. Vandana has brought up just now, how the mechanistic mind, which has got a very narrow outlook, are invading to the minds and lives of people who are otherwise innocent in the way they have been living, and dominating that Western ethnocentric reductionistic worldview to the people at large. But this has been happening for maybe 200 years and more. But now a stage has come, it is annihilating the civilization. It is reaching to the annihilation of the civilization, and it should not go unopposed. So when we say it should not go unopposed, we have to give some data, we have to give some resources, we have to explain what the alternatives that is available. That is what we have tried through this book in a very precise way. What are there, the alternatives? The alternatives are there which see the society as in a continuum, which see the individual being as a part of the external universe. And it substantiates that idea with the very substantial theories which supports the worldview on which this system stands. So far, what I feel is that the science of Ayurveda, the science of healing, science of touching the lives of the people, which is not just giving a remedy for a disease, but telling how to live rightly, how to live healthy, and how to live for 100 years without any morbidity. And this has given a paradigm of knowledge which has been used by our communities for thousands of years. So when this Western domination started, slowly this knowledge system got disintegrated. This is what the calamity is, what we are in today. I have tried in the one of the chapters, starting with the Ayurveda as a lived science. Ayurveda is not a science founded by one individual. Ayurveda is a science of evolution, a science which is evolving through experiences of people who could master that knowledge and who could convert into the form of the formula of a science and could present it in the codified form. So if you see the textbooks of Ayurveda, of which the origin can be traced back to 2000 years BC or beyond, there was a knowledge even existing even before that and got synthesized into the form of a science and presented us to people who are interested to understand that, who can use it. And it gives a tool to use it at any time and any ecosystem, any geographical space. So that's a wonderful aspect of this science. The lived science is that science which lives with the people. This is one of the important thing we try to bring through this chapter on Ayurveda as lived science. It has been evolving. And it says very proudly, and everything in the universe is medicinal. Jagateva manaushadam na vidyal kinjil vasad nanartha yoga. This is a very proud and very substantial proclamation to tell that everything is medicinal. And it does not end there. It says that how it is medicinal, why it is medicinal, what is the context in which it is medicinal, how a human being is related to the external universe. All these relationships are very systematically explained with the concept of Panchamahabodhi Siddhanta, the 5 elemental theory, and how the microcosm and macrocosm is connected, and how the body, mind, and spirit and the universe is connected, and how it is reciprocatively can influence each other. These are the aspects which Ayurveda very deliberately and very detailedly describe it. These sciences have completely forgone and it is not in the mainstream. So people think that, as explained earlier, we are all individual things and without a conscious base, which is not true. And once we remove this aspect from the life becomes meaningless for India or anyone who is thinking wisely. So this is what one thing we tried to explain in the chapter of Ayurveda as a lived science. And the interconnectedness of man and nature, the human being and nature, the living being and the nature, that's very important aspect. We don't separate ourselves. We say that Yavando bhavaha murtimadam dege, tavando loge. Yavando loge, tavando dege is a very great statement which says that every living being is connected externally, and all the things that are there external are available in the body in a different permutation combination. So this elemental thing which connects the micro and the macro is a great contribution of science like Ayurveda, which actually based on the Darsenic principles of our philosophical basis, which starts from Vaisheshika, Sankhya, and Nyaya philosophies. So when this kind of thinking process, which were there, which has been actually refined, thousands of years of debate between intellectuals, people like Shankara, people like Ramanuja, people like great stalwarts have discussed on this, they refined it, and they put into the form of textbook based on a scientific framework. And everything when we write in Ayurveda say that it has to be in the scientific framework. That's why we say Ayurveda is a pramana shastra. Without pramana, without reasoning, without the yukti, without the agama, without the pratyaksha, nothing is accepted in Ayurveda. So the systematic categorization of things, systematic understanding of the living thing, and systematic understanding how one can have a useful and beneficial life in a span of 100 years. What is the content of art and science of Ayurveda? So the man and nature is an important component which connects Ayurveda with the life. Then when we come to the aspects of medicine, we have seen that how the untested primitive kind of understanding of nanoparticles in human system, we do not know how it is going to be completely dispersed from the body, how is it going to metabolize from the body, whether it is excreted through the liver or the kidney or system, or whether it can penetrate the blood-brain barrier and reach to the brain system. We do not know about it. We have got a very limited understanding, and we are going to mass supply of this kind of technology to the people, telling that it is the most efficient and effective system. Whereas Ayurveda says how this kind of deficiencies can be corrected by correcting your lifestyle, by correcting your right kind of choosing the right kind of food system, and have a right kind of living. So these kind of things are completely gone from the mainstream thinking process. All the paradigm of development has taken a very narrow outlook of a very limited people who wants to control the universe in their own way because with their own narrow vested interest. So this is what pains us. When there is a knowledge system which is capable, which has shown, I have given examples of how efficiently the system work with the experimental of modern evidence-based experimental basis, it can be shown. So this is there. Then we have got basic ideas of health is there. We have gone away from that. And if you go to the next level of understanding, we don't say that human being is merely a biological system alone. It is about consciousness. What is this consciousness to do with the larger framework of life, and talks about that. That is how Ayurveda says that we can provide you 100 years of healthy life. Sadam jivama sharada, sadam adhina syama sharada, sadam prabhavama sharada, sadam jivecha sharada sadam. This is the offer that Ayurveda makes through the Vedic rhymes, what a human being can achieve in 100 years, how to live very sensibly and very effectively using the motor organs, the sense organs, and the mind, and enjoying the external universe in the right way. So this is being provided so that it can get into the next time of life. So this kind of understanding is very important to offer to the world. Then there is a parallel paradigm available, which is time tested, which has enough evidence in its own criteria, its own framework. This has to be considered before you paradise the whole humanity with the limited understanding of the biological existence. This is what we have done. I think it is this gives enough reasons to consider why we cannot have a different kind of developmental paradigm based on human civilizational knowledge, human empirical knowledge, and human's experiential evidence that has been created over thousands of years of existing, not only existing merely, but improving and refining ourselves to a great stage of wisdom. This is what I have tried through this book. When you go through it, you will get more idea about what I am talking about it. This has been ably assisted by Dr. Pushya Gautama, my student, Dr. Shiranjini, my colleague, Dr. T.K. Girija Kumari, my wife and my colleague in the hospital, who is a clinician. All these people have contributed to make what it is available in this form. And I feel there are some more things we could have added, like that system biology based Ayurveda approach, which gives a very good understanding. It's in one chart. Actually, we have brought in 350 components, which connects the man and the universe, and how it is so interconnected. It's a very good example, a very good way of explaining in the richness and the diverse way of Ayurveda, in which Ayurveda preaches and practices health and living. I think there is a great need among us who are responsible to take up this further and feed people this idea. And there is a method of having a sound life which is purposeful, not only for praise, but also for praise. But we don't believe that life ends at death. We believe that life transcends at death and get into a newer form of existence. And it is prone to come back, or it just go up. The cyclic understanding of life is what the basis of Ayurveda. I do believe it is not alone Ayurveda or alone Indian civilization. All the sensitive civilization around the world, maybe the Greek, maybe the Mesopotamia, maybe other Egyptian, all those cultures would have found this truth, would have preached it, would have brought into existence and brought into practice. Unfortunately, most of them have gone to oblivion. And fortunately, Ayurveda stands with the light of hope that it can bring back that lost culture for the prosperity of the humanity, for the well-being of the human being. I want to quote a last line from Mahabharata, Drona Parvam, where he says, let me don't get the emancipation. It says, it's a very touching stanza in Mahabharata. I think it says that, Nattoham kameyed rajyam, na swargam na punarbhavam, kame dukkataptanam, praninam arthanashanam. An Indian indigenous wisdom originated in a collective consciousness. It did not and does not belong to any one species. The democratic, organic, decentralized path of knowledge, evolution, and dissemination allowed it to cater to individual and community specificities. Coming from a deep and abiding understanding of life and its interconnectedness, such knowledge grew to be inclusive, life-affirming, and is anchored in harmony and well-being. Innovation, healthcare, agriculture, etc., and progress of any kind had to remain anchored in the nourishment and protection of all these various interconnected dynamic strands of life. So our ancients understood that Earth does not belong only to us. Her resources do not belong to any one being, and her abundance and nurture are not for exploitation and plunder. They are for gratitude, sharing, and celebration. They understand that it was only in respecting the earth that one could respect oneself, and that to be humble was truly to be free. The beauty is that this worldview is not unique to India, but is reflected in most indigenous and tribal traditions across the world. Such a beautiful paradigm is available to us. And from that paradigm, we are reaching to a very narrow-minded, annihilating and destroying the whole species without any kind of discrimination. It's a very painful thing for people who are sensitive to the reality. And I think it is important for each and every citizen to work against it, to fight against it, and make sure that this paradigm of interconnectedness reach to the people, especially who decide what should happen to the next generation. This effort, I should thank actually Dr. Vandana, because she inspired me to write. I was reluctant to write, but she has been insisting that I should write and bring your whatever your knowledge. And my team in CISA, everyone helped me to gave me more responsibility that I should not be in the silos, and I should come out with whatever I know about the science, which is getting reflected in this book. I'm extremely happy to whomever I have talked to about this book. They've been very much interested. They are all very looking forward. And I take this opportunity especially to request Dr. Bhushan to make sure that this kind of work reaches to the right kind of people. So at least a kind of responsibility come to their mind based on data and reasoning available in front of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Biju.
Thank you, Dr. GG, for that wonderful presentation on, especially when we discuss on civilizational dialogue, indigenous wisdom and collective consciousness are the things which really matter when we look forward. Dr. Bhushan Padwardhan, if you can share your thoughts after listening to these two speeches.
No, actually, after listening to both of them, there is nothing much to share from my side, But I again remember what Dr. Vandana Shiva has been telling all the time, that food is something which is very, very, very valuable to us. Health and food are so well connected. We should not really. And Gigi also has talked about, how food and Ayurveda believes that food is medicine. So this is something Indian farmers actually revere earth. They call it as Bhumata. But excessive use of toxic chemicals, really, we are destroying the whole texture, the whole microbiome. I really get worried the way in which the science and technology is moving. The report which I mentioned, of late lessons from early warning, if you tell me to make essence of it in one line, the report has told us that scientists so far have worked more for industry and less for people. Oh, this is not good. I see that the way in which the whole industry is moving, especially the pharmaceutical industry and the agrochemical industry is moving, and the examples which Dr. Shiva has given, are really, I feel really scared the way in which we are moving, in which direction. So this kind of a civilizational dialogue which this book has brought, I think is very, very valuable. And I again congratulate both of them. And I want to finally mention that whether it is medicine or whether it is food, I remember GG can give you quotes from Ayurveda. I feel that the way in which industry, and Dr. Vandana mentioned about this soft drink battles, and the aerated drink thing. I think it is so criminal when I see a bottle of Chota Coke in the hand of a small village boy, barefooted, who is playing cricket, In that advertisement, everything I see, now the markets in urban areas are going down, and you are now targeting rural areas. Some kind of a culture, some kind of a system, some kind of a values are still prevailing in rural areas. Now you want to destroy that, make them play cricket instead of gilli danda, and make them drink Coke or Pepsi or other aerated drinks, replacing their own traditional drinks, and replace their millets with biscuits and bread. I think we are doing something very, very wrong, and we have to take a pause immediately, and we have to go on the right track. I hope this book will facilitate that transition to bring back our society on the right track based on our own traditions, our own culture, and our own roots. I hope that it happens sooner than later. Dhanyawad. Namaskar.
Thank you, Patwardhanji.
I think one of the important thing I just left in my talk is about the food. I think that food chapter is very, very important. How the food culture is taking us, and how Ayurveda offers a profound experience of food based on Shadrasas. That's a very important area. I think I just left that particular chapter, which is very important. It's actually a pivot of this book from that point of view. Thank you, Bhushan, for reminding me that book part.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Vandana ji. You are muted.
Yeah. When you look through history, there've always been civilizing missions. And the British had a civilizing mission of constantly wanting to improve us, but their improvement of us was to take away our resources, take away our spices. Pepper used to exchange for a bag of gold, and by the time the British had finished, they transferred 45 trillion to England by impoverishing us and basically harvesting the true share that used to come to India. And this is what I call the extractive system. Extractive is both in the economic models, but it is also in the tools. Technology merely means tools. And India has been an evolver of amazing systems of tools. Having worked in science and technology systems, I was in Bangalore for 3 years in the science technology division of the Indian Institute of Management in Bangalore. And there are 4 questions that one asks anytime of technology. Is it necessary? So if I have good iron-rich diet, do I need nanoparticles? No, it's not. It fails the necessity test. Is it better than available alternatives for our health and freedom? The dietary alternatives are definitely superior, and even the Ayurvedic treatments in severe cases of anemia have been tested and tried. Is it safe from risk and hazards to health? Is the GMO Impossible Burger safe from risk? No evidence. Is nanoparticles safe from risks? Not studied, not evaluated. And does it aid nature and the larger common good? Now, any true technology should be willing to go through these tests, if it is a technology. If it's a civilizing mission of destroying the alternatives and taking over markets, taking over resources, because in the field that we are talking, whether it's food or health or humanity, we are talking about patenting. We're talking about ownership. We're talking about piracy. We are basically talking about a declaration that I own the food, I own the seeds, I own your body, I own the technologies that will harm you, but I will not take any responsibility. And I want to end by sharing a quote I just read from Buckminster Fuller, who is absolutely loved by ecologically minded people. And for those who think Ayurveda doesn't have enough knowledge, maybe you'll listen to Buckminster Fuller. This is what he says. In its complexities of design, integrity, the universe is technology. The complexity, self-organization of a seed becoming a plant is a technology shaped from within. Health and healing through Ayurveda is a technology shaped from within. Regulating pests through biodiversity, integrated pest management, or even a neem spray is a technology which does not kill people like endosulfan and the Bhopal disaster. The technology evolved by man is thus far amateurish compared to the elegance of non-humanly contrived regeneration. Man does not spontaneously recognize technology other than his own. And I would add, the technology barons, the big tech, doesn't recognize anything unless they have shaped it and own it and force it. So he speaks of the rest as something he ignorantly calls nature. And that is how they define our systems, as having no science, no technology, no intelligence, no sophistication. The shift has to be to recognizing complex self-organization as the highest technology in nature and in ecological systems of food and health and being human. And crude technologies, whether they come from war as chemicals or they come from an invasive idea, they are actually crude and they need to go through those tests and they will fail. So I have put in my chapters all the biodiversity alternatives for everything that big tech is offering through patents and genetic engineering. On everything they offer, that's a bad idea. We have nature and our abundance in biodiversity. And that is why it's so important to continue this work as part of our biodiversity regeneration, including, as we've written, the biodiversity of the mind, because the mechanical mind is a desertified mind. The ecological mind, the biodiversity of the mind, is a mind that is active within and is able to regenerate life around, very much reflecting the quotations from Ayurveda that Dr. Gangadharan shared with us.
Thank you, Vandana ji. And we have some questions in the question box that we have. And one question is that, I'll read out the essence of that question. And that is to Vandana ji. See, we live in a society which is almost driven by technology. And then, what is the, solutions for that when we go ahead?
Well, at one level, what I just shared is the solution. To recognize that technology is a tool, it's not a civilizing mission, it's not the white man's burden to colonize us again and colonize our minds and give up our knowledge, give up our ability to think, to give up our ability to choose. There's a very, very beautiful diagram in one of the chapters on Ayurveda that Dr. Gangadharan has given of the 5 koshas, that we as a human being are not just one shell separate from the universe. We are interacting all the time. And so you have the Anna Kosh, where the food and the water and the breath becomes our body. Nature makes our body. And the Pranamaya Kosh and the Manomaya Kosh and the Vijnanmaya Kosh. Vijnan is not just knowledge, but the wisdom to distinguish between reliable knowledge and unreliable knowledge, the ability to distinguish between knowledge that will work for the common good versus knowledge that will work for common destruction. I think we have such rich thinking, and all the work that I do from the perspective of science in its contemporary situation is reaffirming everything, that we are interconnected. If there's going to be one cleavage between the old Cartesian mechanistic paradigm of separation and a future based on ecological thought, it will be interconnectedness. And Dr. Gangadharan shared it in my work. That is what I've learned in all of these years, beginning from my years of quantum theory. But no matter how much money they spend, and no matter how much coercive imposition of technology, pesticides were imposed coercively. All the technologies right now of invading into our bodies, invading into our food, are coercively imposed. These are not symptoms of a free society. Interconnectedness is it's impossible to shut it out. The world is waking up to it. It is a new awakening that from every sphere of life, people are realizing medicine, everything is interconnected. Ecology, everything is interconnected. Food, everything is interconnected in agroecology. Human beings, to be more human, to live with more well-being, we are interconnected. And this is where Ayurveda throws the light, and the new sciences throw the same light in the same direction. And the obsolete 500 years of colonial thought, 100 years of Hitler's wars are not throwing a light, they are throwing a darkness. And of course, if we stay in darkness, we will walk in the way they push us. So what's the way forward? Learn, know, choose with informed decisions.
Yeah. Another question is to Dr. GG, and how the Ayurveda can actually gain the supremacy, especially in India, as a knowledge system, as a treatment system, especially in the post-COVID.
See, Ayurveda actually has got 3 levels of learning. The problem today is that we have the Tattva, the Shastra, and Vyavahara. That Tattva part of Ayurveda is completely neglected. If Tattva part of Ayurveda is rejuvenated, nourished, that will overpower all the scientific thing that is happening in the world. So we have to strengthen Ayurveda through good institutions of IIT caliber, IIM caliber, so that people work on these ideas of contemporizing Ayurveda. For example, the best example is the Corona episode that we have been facing. When we have rich experience from different sources with proof of contemporary use, we are not given a chance to use it. Whereas, as now you have seen, things which are unproven, which are dangerous, are put into use. So we have to have political will to upgrade and utilize and mainstream Ayurvedic science in different level. It has to start from primary healthcare to secondary healthcare, tertiary healthcare, and all our horizontal and other kind of health system management. So unless otherwise we have a kind of policy boost, Ayurveda cannot be made mainstream. For that, lot of groundwork has to be done. For example, I can quote even now, the Ministry of Ayush, which is functioning with a budget which is equivalent or lesser than the budget of All India Institute of Medical Science in Delhi. One institution is absorbing the kinds of fund which is being equal to the Ministry of Ayush, which is controlling all India health requirements. So you can imagine what kind of resources are being put into it. So bring Ayurveda to the mainstream, we have to bring in more thoughtful minds, scientific minds, and we have to encourage young people who are interested to grow it, and through institutionalization of this knowledge system, through perpetuating good standard educational institutions, which are lacking today and very abysmal and very pathetic state. All these areas to be corrected, improved, then Ayurveda will come into mainstream. For that, a mindset as is required, where people should be felt the need of bringing it up.
Okay, quite a lot of refined thinking are coming in different parts of the world, particularly in the new normal. And we are sure that some of the things will change, especially when we take up this civilizational dialogue and really understanding the knowledge, where the knowledge rule and knowledge actually decide whom to come to power. And then that kind of a scenario, definitely things will change, and we can remain optimistic about that. I'm sure. And we in CISA also have some plans along with Navdanya to take this dialogue forward. And Dr. Suresh, you wanted to speak something about that? The movement which we started as Annam, the good food movement in India, and how will we carry this forward? Dr. Suresh.
Yeah. Thank you, Vandana ji and Dr. GG for their excellent presentations. And actually, Vandana ji was instrumental in CISA thinking about food and good food and Annam movement for the whole country. just before going, I had an opportunity to read one of your interviews in 1997. You gave it in England to a TV interview. They asked you about what would be the McDonald's experience in India. They have just started coming to India, and your answer at that time was, India. We do have one of the largest, most diverse food cultures in a very sophisticated food culture. I have heard it that said that one thing you cannot make Indians give up is their food culture. But after around 24 years, the fast food industry is growing like anything in India also. So the last year, I think in 2019, the McDonald's, they have fed 68 million people in the world in each day. That means they are feeding 1% of the world population. And also the India, the problem is around 65% of our population is below 35. And those people, the population from 10 to 40 years or 44 years is 58%. That means that we have a large population of Indians who can come under the influence of these multinational who are exploiting and destroying our food culture. So what we need now is what we call a movement of movement. It can preserve, powerful enough to preserve the food diversity of our country. For India, I think the war is not lost. We still have our roots in our food cultures. Even with most traditional, most ancient sciences like Ayurveda is coexisting with the modern sciences, modern medical systems. And in this time of COVID era, people have again rediscovering the benefits of the ancient system, which is more than 5,000 years old. And also, so what we need is a movement of youngsters who can take up this challenge of fighting these multinationals who is robbing our country of our wealth and also our culture. I just happen to see that all the top 10 fast food giants in the world are American. If you take the largest 20 companies, 17 are American. If you take the 100 fast food companies in the world, around 87 are American. So the American culture and the American food, the whole world is eating. And around 42% of the restaurants in the whole world is of fast food restaurants. So what we are fighting is a very, a very, very big battle we have to fight. And the younger population in India, who is around 60% of the population, who are influenced by these giants, we have to deal with the situation in a very big way. Otherwise, we'll be losing the battle. It is said that this present generation will be the one generation with all the medical advancements and all the technology we have, will be living shorter than their previous generation. And even the bad food is the biggest killer. In 2017, the bad food killed around around 11 million people, but the tobacco killed only 8 million people. So the fight is the real fight. The India and also there is a saturation in developing countries, and most of the fast food companies are spreading to developing countries. India, Brazil, China are their new targets, and Taco Bell is planning to open 600 outlets in India in the next coming years. And each company has a plan to spread to India and China and Brazil and developing world. So the fight has shifted to our own country and our own land. And what we need is what I have said earlier, a movement with the youngsters in front to fight these giants. So Vandana Shiva, you have to take the lead, and you have to take the whole country to take to a new level of this fight against these people Otherwise, we will be losing, as we have seen in America, more than, because of the $10 they spend for food, $4 are spent for the fast food. So such a spread, they have around more than 2 lakh fast food restaurants. No country in the world has succeeded in combating the non-communicable diseases. All the efforts, all the advances in the science and technology, and there's a what you call a report is $30 trillion will be the cost of the world for treating these diseases, and that will be 40% of the today's global GDP. So this is a very, very, very wide area, and also during the COVID era, there is only one industry that has gained is fast food industry. Through their own online delivery, they have achieved what they planned for 2023. They have achieved recently. So they are ahead of their plans, and they are influencing the whole world. So philosophically and practically also, we have to do this battle, and we have to start immediately on a bigger scale and a more encompassing scale to deal with the situation. That's all. Thank you. And CISA is trying to drive through webinars and programs in campuses to drive this point. And our experience, which we have started, is when we are talking to the youngsters about the health effects of fast food, they are not listening because they are not bothered. But when we talk them about the exploitation of these companies, how they are addicting our brains, how they are looting our country, how they are dangerous for our environment, and how then they are reacting, and they said we have to do something. So there is an inherent rebellion in the younger mind against injustice and exploitation. Rather than the health aspect, we have to exploit this inherent rebellion in the youngsters to take the movement forward. I think it will be possible for us to do it, along with your leadership and CISA's commitment for this cause. Thank you.
Vandana ji, any feedback on that?
No, we have to work together in cooperation, but this is now an existential problem. And what Dr. Suresh said is, it's the exploitation aspect that people get. This is about exploitation. One of the impacts is on our health, but if people don't care about their health, but they do care about stopping exploitation, let us show that eating the right food and keeping food in our hands, our food sovereignty, our cultural sovereignty, our knowledge sovereignty, is really the new independence movement. Freedom of the country, it is vital for the survival of the livelihoods of people. And of course, it's vital to health. But if health is the last note, let's talk about the multinational takeover through junk food and extractivism.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm so glad, Dr. Suresh Kumar, you're listening to the young people, and you have your hand on their pulse, because we must go where they are at and reach them from their sensitivities. And of course, the next step, they will come to Annam. Because if you have to have an alternative to the exploitative system, where else but to come to Annam?
That is true. That is true. And we should have a multi-pronged strategy as well, a kind of holistic movement. And
one more thing, we need to make this national. I mean, Kerala, as it is, has a better way of waking up. But let us find ways, especially in the Zoom era, where the restrictions of space are transcended. Let's think of how CISA and Navdanya can make these youth interactions.
As a national movement. Yeah.
As a national movement, yes. And of course, we'll do it together. Yeah.
Thank you, Vandana ji. And that is the spirit, and then we'll carry it forward, definitely. And now it's over to Sri Ajit Venur for proposing the word of thanks.
Unmute.
Okay, sorry, it was mute. There was some problem with the question. Okay. Namaste, Dr. Bhushan Padwardhan, Dr. Vandana Shiva, Dr. GG, Dr. Bijukumar, Dr. Suresh, distinguished participants and friends. This is, of course, a blessed occasion for all of us at CISA and Navadhanya. CISA has been fortunate to work with Navadhanya right from its beginning, especially in the areas of good food, good health, and biodiversity. The impact of this work in the society has been very encouraging. This book, which is launched today, The Two Features of Food, Health, and Humanity, is co-authored by Dr. Vandana Shiva and Dr. GG Gangadharan, who are authorities and practitioners in their respective fields, which makes this a valuable contribution to the field of environmental health research. Genuineness of the outcome of long-spread research and experiments is the thrust of this work. It's really a methodological attempt to facilitate a scientific and civilizational dialogue on the future of food, health, and humanity to contribute to human well-being and freedom and the greater common good across diverse cultures and knowledge systems. This dialogue also illustrates how the giant corporates are planning to transform our food system, our bodies, our understanding of health, and the very meaning of being human without any lessons learned from the failure of the mechanist paradigm in food and health over the last few decades. It is a little bit disappointing to organize such a virtual release of this precious book. A serious in-depth discussion on this book should have followed the release function for effective dissemination of this to general public. I sincerely wish such a stage will materialize in the near future. I place on record our earnest thanks and gratitude to Dr. Bhushan Padwardhan, Vice Chairman of the University Grants Commission, for launching this book and delivered a very informative introductory lecture. I also express our sincere thanks to the authors, Dr. Vandana Shiva and Dr. GG Gangadharan, for enlightening us with this precious work. Thank you so much, Dr. Bijukumar, for coordinating and moderating this program. I also express our sincere thanks to Srimati Usha Nair, who helped us in editing this work, and Dr. Suresh Kumar, who took active interest in publishing this book, and Sri Manu and Krishna Priya, who helped in the design, layout, and proof correction of this book. And they deserve special mention of appreciation. I extend our cordial thanks to the special guests, the participants attending this webinar and the book release function, and to all who have joined us in this noble occasion. Namaste and Shubharatri.
Namaste. Namaste. Thank you all, both the panelists as well as the participants who watched it in the Zoom platform as well as in Facebook. Thank you all.
Thanks to Ajit, especially for your kind words in the end. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.